Hi, fifth grade teachers. It's Martha. I'm going to walk you through our math pacing calendar for 26-27. And if I do my job correctly, you will walk away with the answers to these 4 questions. What's the rationale for the changes in our calendar this year? Hey, what is lockstep and what can we move around? And when we're moving something around, how do we make instructionally sound adaptations? And finally, and this one is new and exciting, how do we integrate math IABs this year more consistently? So, rationale for the pacing changes, they come from you all. So all of those comments that you provided in the survey, we looked at them all carefully and made some significant changes based on them. I would say significant because basically those first 2 that you see there kind of reflect what folks were saying, which is it was a problem that we did not finish Unit 7 before CASP. So we noticed that Unit 7 started week 32, which put it right in the middle of both ELA and math assessment, math testing. So for our new calendar, we end Unit 7 right before ELA CASP. ELA CASP week is totally open. Math CASP week is totally open. And then we can start Unit 8, which does not have any new standards after CASP testing. So that is a big change. And so some of the other changes you'll see, because we have to hustle a little bit more before CASP testing, that's based on that rationale. And that was important to you. Some of you said, listen, the placement of the assessments were right after a break, and that was kind of a problem. So we did make those changes as well. Particularly, you mentioned President's Day, and we made sure that Unit 5 was done before President's Week, and Unit 4 was done before winter, and at least 1/3 of Unit 7 was done before spring break. All right, here we go. Folks were not happy about how quickly Unit 6 in particular went. And so we did put what limited padding days we had. I stuck them in Unit 6. So we have 2 full padding days, right? And 4 partial padding days in Unit 6 to kind of try to address that issue as best we can. Folks that said we need more days for reviewing and reteaching, please know that those checkpoint days, I'm calling them partial padding, not full padding, because that's really what they are. But we know that those checkpoints are 2 to 3 problems. They take about 20 minutes. So if you are using your math block of 60 to 90 minutes, you still have quite a bit of time for review and reteach. And we try to do that as much as possible. And that comes up at maybe every 5 to 6 days for review. Finally, somebody said, hey, we wrapped up Unit 5 early and moved on to Unit 6. It worked with this group, but maybe not others. And that really is the conundrum that I have, is I can't really predict what your class is going to need. And so we are making sure that you have the knowledge that you need to move the padding lessons and activities around in thoughtful ways. And so we're going to address that in the next section as well. And finally, there were some concerns about this unit sequence, and I will address that very specifically too. Okay, let's get to the positives. Thank you for those of you who also said, you know what, a lot of it worked for me. Thank you, it's right on par. It was helpful. I'm happy to hear that as well. And we are just wanting to tighten it up and make sure it meets your needs that you voiced on the survey. What is lockstep? What can we move around? What is nailed down? So the nailed down unit sequence, let's talk about that as well as the data dates. The unit sequence is very intentional, and it follows the standards and research-based learning trajectories, and it tells a cohesive story about math. And I provide you 2 links that might help you understand that coherence. So the dependency diagram and the story of grade 5 are there for you. And what's interesting is somebody actually put very specifically, it's difficult for my students to begin with volume because we should be beginning with basically place value, multiplying and dividing. And in that story of the grade, with the link that I provided, it addresses that very thing. Hey, most curriculums start with place value and multiplication and division. However, we don't, and here's the reason why. So I do provide that link for you so that you at least know the intentionality and the reasoning behind their unit choices and why we are sticking with them. Data dates, just like last year, nailed down, right? I did add them to the Saturday column so they're easy for you to spot and put into your calendar. Move around, padding days, lessons, activities. We'll get more into the nitty gritty with how you can change lessons and activities, but the padding days, obviously, one thing you can do, and this is how it was actually originally designed, is you can double up a lesson with a checkpoint, since those checkpoints are relatively short, and that would be one way you can move your padding around. Also, you can bank some padding days certain places and use them in other places, again, to meet the needs of your specific schedule and student needs, right? We will talk a little bit more in our next section on how to change around lessons and activities. So let's get on into that. That's question number 3. Let's be instructionally sound when we do make those changes. I watched an hour video and it talks a lot about the IM design. So we're going to keep our eyes on IM design and standards as how we make our pacing adaptations. So first, that hour-long video talked about those 3 components that recur over and over again: the invitation to the mathematics, the deep study, and then the consolidating and applying. And we talked about this last year, how it appears at the lesson level, the activity level, the unit level, and the program level. Now, some might say, gosh, so that invitation to the mathematics, maybe I just take that part off and just dive right into this deep study. And what they said in this 1-hour webinar that I watched, so you won't have to, is our advice for adaptation is to keep that overall overarching design in mind. So keep those 3 components, slim them down, each one, but don't remove one. And here's Jennifer Wilson explaining that. And she says, listen, when you have 20 lessons and only 15 days to do them, still keep that overarching design structure. Make sure that you do an invitation lesson. Don't go straight into the deep study. Make sure that you have an opportunity for the kids to apply. Don't lop that one off, right? And if you are combining lessons, and it's interesting that she says this because obviously she recognizes that that's sometimes something we need to do. And when we need to do it, make sure you keep that design structure evident, all right? So helpful in that regard of understanding the IM design and what you keep and what you can actually slim down and remove. Now, as for the standards, I did highlight for you this year in pink the new standards that are addressed in a unit, so you kind of know, oh, I can't skip those. Those all geometry standards are new in Unit 7, right? In Unit 6, look at that. A lot of new standards in NF fractions, and they are major work of the grade. That's why I stuck some extra padding there. And by the way, those words, major work of the grade, supporting, and additional standards that I'm now putting into the pacing guide, they come all from this, where to focus in mathematics. And it comes from Student Achievement Partners, and it's basically saying not all standards are created equal in each grade level. And so you need to know where you would camp out and spend the time and where you would just introduce and move on. Okay? All right. Finally, how do we integrate math IABs this year? We know that math IABs are super helpful. They mirror the CASP content. They provide focused skill practice, especially if we can mirror what we're teaching with the IAB. We get fantastic diagnostic feedback, including the item analysis and distractor analysis, way more instructional than the math, STAR Math, for instance, data. And so with that, we can instruct off of it. We can show the kids, where did they have trouble? How can we redo it so we don't have trouble? It reduces student and teacher anxiety. Kids get to practice the tools. I watched one kid not know how to make a fraction, even though he knew fractions and he wasn't able to show it. So kids get to practice those digital tools, the format, and because of that, they can significantly improve their readiness for the summative, and that's just proven. So let's use them to our advantage and the advantage of our kids. So my question was, hey, how do we do this more consistently throughout the year instead of having it one time in March as a benchmark? And then also, how do we match the IABs with our curriculum? What I came up with was a crosswalk that puts the IABs, slots them in with the corresponding units, and those are available for you on your pacing guide as well as on the huddle. I've placed them the day after you give the end of unit assessment from IM. One of the things people like to do is they like to use that day where they send them off as a second kind of end of unit assessment where they're working on their own. And then the teachers take that time to thumb through their IM, end of unit assessment, find those tricky places. And then when the kids are ready, they're done with their IAB, you get to strategically approach those sticky points with your kids. So that partial padding, you're reviewing the assessment, but you're also giving a second data point IAB that goes with that unit. So that's one way to do it. You don't have to do it that way. It can become a pre-assessment at the beginning of a unit. It can be an instructional tool for you where you're actually guiding the kids through the IAB. It is your choice, but we do highly recommend that you do the IABs throughout the school year. That link is there for you, and when you have choices like, gosh, I have two, you're going to have to take a look and see which one might work for you, and you would assign them just like you would assign your IAB benchmark at the end of the school year. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, hey, there are more IABs than math units. What can we do there? Please remember, you have some of that extra padding days at the end as well, where you can be running through those. But better to do it consistently throughout the year as well, right? Okay, those are the 4 points that I'm hoping you're taking away and that help you with your planning for your 26-27 math instruction. Thank you so very much for all that you do for our kids. We know how much time it takes, and we certainly appreciate you. Please reach out to me, Martha Rinkin, if you have any questions. I will see you around. And again, thanks for your work.